So hello, and welcome to the Technical University of Munich's MOOC on academic writing. My name is Stephen Stark, and this lesson is about rhetorical preferences. Language and writing are both cultural, which means that languages are encoded with culture. The idea that time is money appears in phrases like spending time, buying time, wasting time, and this is unique to English writing and speaking. This also means that the role of the writer and what is considered good as well as bad writing and credibility are all linked back to cultural expectations. Credibility, by the way, refers to whether we believe what the writer is telling us. In English, the writer is responsible for communicating, making sure the reader has all the information necessary to understand whatever it is the writer wishes to communicate. But you're probably wondering what that means concretely for you as a writer. One of the main tasks of the writer is to organize information and to guide the reader through that information. You also have to ask yourself what readers need to know in order to understand your text. What background information might you have to provide? On this slide, you see 3 paragraphs of varying lengths, which form a complete text. Pause the video, read through the text, and decide the correct order. Once you think you've answered the question, please move on to the next slide for the answer. Whether an email, a paragraph, an essay, a thesis, or a dissertation, each text should have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The introduction provides some context, background information, so the reader has an idea about what is coming. You might define a term, provide some history, or describe a problem, depending on the purpose of the text, the length of the text, and the audience. The introduction should also contain a thesis statement, which is the central idea for the text. For example, the sentence in blue here. Then in the body, you should provide the main message, developing it logically, using appropriate language for the audience, and making sure that everything is connected to the thesis statement. In the conclusion, you bring everything together, leaving the reader with the main message or messages of your text. In this case, that science and technology are inseparable in computer science or informatics. In English, because the role of the writer is to guide the reader, texts tend to be linear, moving logically from one point to the next, developing an idea. Additionally, the takeaway message at the end should also be clear. Pause the video and decide which of the following outlines for an essay you find most convincing and think about why. So pause here, please. Outline A is better because it takes a position. The introduction probably contains the disadvantages of digitalization. The directness of the text in the body and conclusion should lead to a clear action. Outline B contains a question, which can be answered with an easy yes, and the conclusion just says it all depends, which doesn't take us any further than we were before. We read the text, so we would say, thanks for nothing. Alternatively, the world is not black and white, so the essay does not have to argue for one action, but might argue that action X is preferred in one case and action Y in another. You will also notice here a different approach to organizing the body of the essay. You can focus, as on the left, first on the advantages for each domain, and then the disadvantages. Or, as on the right, you can examine the advantages and disadvantages for individual domains. You, the writer, have to decide which structure is most appropriate, based on your topic, purpose, and audience. We are now going to talk about credibility. You know the word incredible, which originally meant something like unbelievable. In this context, credibility therefore means how likely the reader is to believe what you say. 2 issues can have a strong impact on credibility. The first is register, which generally means the level of formality. Academic writing tends to be formal. Just like you don't go to a wedding wearing pajamas, you use formal language when writing for professors and journals, for example. Pause the video and decide whether the text on the screen is formal or informal. This text is not formal. Slang like ginormous, kids, and glued to their smartphones is not typical in formal English. The phrases way too and hardly see it should be stated more formally as well. In addition, the phrase a very young age is imprecise. Is 5 or 10 very young, or 20? It's a question of perspective, so it should be defined. Children between the ages of 8 and 12, for example. So it's important to be aware of what is expected of formal English to meet the reader's needs. Fairness can also impact credibility. Topics should be presented as if it is possible to have more than one point of view on them. Pause the video and read the text. How does the style of writing impact your view of the writer's fairness and credibility? So pause the video now, please. The writer seems a bit arrogant here, as if every intelligent person should share that view and anyone who disagrees is an idiot. Digitalization, however, will certainly have positive and negative effects, and in the academic world, this dual nature should be discussed. It is also important to cite your sources, to say where your information comes from. Now, how has digitalization changed our lives, and what researchers have studied this? Giving credit here is also a sign of fairness, acknowledging the hard work others have put into studying what you are also studying. Again, language is cultural, so writing is too, and it is the writer's task to make sure the reader can understand what he or she is writing and why. This means you have to provide the background necessary to understand the text in the introduction. The body of the essay should then develop logically, and the conclusion should summarize the main points and take the reader one step further, calling for action, for example. It is also important for the writer to establish credibility, believability, and this means using appropriately formal and technical language from a field, acknowledging that different opinions may exist and that intelligent people can interpret data differently, and it means citing your sources. So thank you for your time and best of luck writing your text.